Okay, everyone. So what we're going to talk about today is the what Elon and many other people talked about, which is space AI. So that they want to put AI data centers into space. That's Starcloud and a startup put up one Nvidia H100. They're working with Nvidia on that. Nvidia's talked very positively about that, and then Google is talking about putting up their TPUs up into space, saying that that's a huge goal for them for 2027. And then Elon has talked about putting up 100 gigawatts, maybe by 2030. I think it's a bit over exuberant by Elon. My reason is that there may not be 50 million chips, which you would need to have 100 gigawatts to put up. So if no one else has made the chips, it's kind of tough to put them up anywhere in time. And then if you do have the chips, then you have to have your share of them because if it does not give you all their chips, so then that's another problem. Anyway, so we'll go over those things in detail and also why the exact timing is, you should think of it more like robotaxi or Tesla bot, that these things will take time. When they do happen, they change everything, right?
Yeah.
So that's another one of those things where it may take a bit of time. If it takes an extra 5 years, don't worry, it will be worth the wait. Randy, do you want to talk about anything about that?
Yeah, I'm kind of along for the ride on this one. It's so new. I mean, it's really only been, I mean, Brian started talking about it a couple of weeks ago, and then all of a sudden Elon has a post on X, and then Google's, puts up their post, and it's like it's being talked about on moonshots at with Peter Diamandis, and I'm like, wow, it's like, is this slowly, and then all at once or something. And of course, then there's also the moon part because Elon was, apparently going a little too slow for NASA with regard to getting us back to the moon. And so Duffy said, "Hey, if you're not going to get us there, blah blah blah, then I'll start looking around for other help." And Elon goes, "Not only am I going to get you there,
Yeah.
we're going to start mining and refining and putting up data centers on the moon." Anyway,
Yeah. And the other thing was that it's been announced that they're going to approve the they're going to approve Jared Isaacman as the
yeah,
NASA administrator. So basically, Sean Duffy won't be in charge of NASA anymore. It's going to be Jared Isaacman once they stop the government shutdown,
right.
and then they'll have that. So Jerry Eisman has gone up twice in Elon's uh, Falcon 9 into orbit, so he's been astronaut twice, and they're really good friends.
Yeah.
So the chance of Jerry Isaacman announcing some other alternative thing where they're going to pay some other company a few $1 billion to be a backup to SpaceX is not going to happen. They're
And
just going
then
to work together and figure out how to save a year. Yeah.
and then Isaacson is a billionaire.
Yes.
He's built his own company. So
Right.
he's a builder, he's a founder. So
Right.
he's the kind of person that's going to want to make this thing happen. And he's going to try everything he knows how to do to knock down barriers.
And then he also has flown in the Falcon 9. He knows rockets in
Yeah.
far more detail. So he'll be able to say, if we just do this and this, we can save on certain testing times with still maintaining safety, and then we can shave a year off.
Right.
So, and then there's people talking about like angry astronaut talking about, oh, if we only have to pay Blue Origin $2 billion and they'll do these kind of things. It's kind of like they're on the second launch.
Right.
They're going to be on their second launch next week. They have never landed a booster. They're going to get to maybe 4 boosters next year. So, and then say, well, and then we'll do 2 launch tests with them in 2026. You may not get 2 launch tests in 2026. They have another NASA launch they have to do. I think 2 other launches. So then you can get these 2 extra launches, and you can say, okay, by the way, Kuiper, which is Amazon putting up constellations, and AST Space Mobile. yes, you need to get every launch that they have available and more to try and get the things that you've contracted them for
Right,
2026. And then you
right.
say, I'm going to toss in two extra launches, and you take away from who? Because you're already behind on all your other stuff. So that's ridiculous that you can save time with them.
On
It's
a,
not
on a,
good.
si- on a sidebar, China might have three astronauts stuck in space. Did you see
Okay.
that?
No, I didn't see that.
So, I don't know if it's a definite yet or not, but apparently their return vehicle or something got hit with some space debris. I don't know. I read it briefly and it made
Yeah.
me think, will they call Elon to get because they're buds with
They, they
Elon. So
should they should have spares. But if they need to be rescued, they'd be rescued. But the issue there would be that um, the any docking thing would have to be a Chinese-made docking thing because
oh,
we don't have a docking thing to go onto their
yeah,
space station because they didn't, it's not necessarily standard of like, okay, I can just, whatever I did with ISS, I can do the same thing over here. It's like
right, right.
different doors, all that kind of stuff. So um, it wouldn't be, they would have to launch their Shenzhou or whatever thing and deliver it. But the thing is, they have loads of rockets,
Okay,
so I can't see how they get stuck. They would have spares, and they have loads of rockets. It makes no sense that they would be stuck up there,
okay,
because yeah. So, but I'll look into things to see what's going on. But them being up there an extra month or two, because they do launches every 6 months, manned launches every 6 months. So if they said, okay, we have to pull this other one up and move it, then in 3 months they'd be ready to go,
right.
and then it'd be a delay that's not a big
Makes
deal.
yeah.
Yeah. So the key to AI data centers in space is the Starship, right?
Okay.
So this thing has to get fully reusable for that because, and I can go into details of the pricing. I think we may have gone into details some other times, but basically, in order for a Starship full of chips and computers and AI data center, roughly about 40 megawatts worth. So that's about each chip uses about 2 kilowatts, right? So if you have 40 megawatts, that's about 20,000 chips that you'd be putting into a Starship load. Okay.
Okay.
So up from one, people are talking about doing 100 next year in chips, which would be about 200 kilowatts, right? So if you put in a load, it could be all end up being one thing, or it could be a bunch of separate ones, right? But the main thing is just in terms of raw numbers, right? 20,000 chips in one Starship needs to be less than $80 million
Mm,
for the solar and for the cool, cooling and other heat management systems, not the chip part, but no, the server part, but the energy part of it, right?
right.
Because that's what we're comparing. Because like the
Sure.
chips on Earth are up there are the same. Um, so then it's just is my energy to run them and the other parts to cool them, is that cheap and light enough for what we need to do?
Right.
And so that
And we did an entire video on that.
right,
I want to say 4 or 5 weeks ago. People can go, check
yeah.
that one out.
Yeah. So basically, that $80 million for 40 megawatts is a crossover point, right? So right now, a Falcon 9, 1/10 the size of this, and 20 tons instead of like 200 tons, right?
Mhm.
Costs SpaceX sells that for like $70 million,
Okay.
right? So, but it costs SpaceX about $15 million to fly it because they're
Mhm.
reusing it. So they have a nice margin on
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
right? So if this thing goes and then you're reusing the whole thing, so I'm not throwing it away. So just like a a Boeing 747, I can fly it many times and I'm good. At least 20 times, and then I bring the cost per launch. Even if it cost me $100 million, I bring the cost down to like 5 million, $10 million,
Wow.
right? Because I'm amortizing it.
Sure.
I can
Sure.
say, okay, this $100 million thing, I'm using it 5 million here, 5 million here, 5 million here.
Right.
Or if I can use it 100 times, it's 1 million, 1 million, 1. Very easy. I just divide by how many times I use it,
Sure.
right? But the thing is, SpaceX doesn't have to sell at that price because they're saying at 15 million, I charge 70. If you have no other competitor, because we talked
Right.
about Blue Origin not being ready, why am I cutting my prices? Just because it's cheaper for me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not necessarily cutting the price for you. So
Right.
if I'm already at 70, I don't, and I'm still winning all the market share, I may say, okay, I'll move that down to 40 million, and then this will be 80 or 100 million.
Mhm.
people still buy it because it's like, wow, I just paid double or triple and I got like 10 times more volume,
Right.
right? But that above 80 million means no one else can do AI data centers in space cheaper than on Earth because I'm not selling you the ride
Hmm.
to put it up there,
Hmm.
right? And then that goes to the solar and other parts of it to get that cost down. But if you have no room to work with, then you can't be cheaper,
Right.
right? Right. So let me just go to the next thing here. So these are what they look like, right? This is the first three are the Starlink 1.5, which we put up 3 years ago, and then about 2 years ago we switched over to the version 2, which are bigger. They call them version 2 minis, and then the version 3 is the one they're going to start up next year. These the V2s are about like 20 kilowatts or so of power, and then these V3s are maybe 50 to 100 kilowatts of power. Um, so that 100 kilowatts be enough for about 1,500 chips, right? Um, and so that's what we're gonna be testing at first. We're gonna say, okay, let's pop up some smaller ones, with able to power 10 chips in the V2s, and then power 100 chips or 50 chips, or 150 chips, they move to zero, 50 chips with the V3, and then they'll adapt the V3 to go to higher numbers, 100 chips, 200 chips, by going
Right.
to like 100 or 200 kilowatts of power. Um, they want to make a Starcloud 2. Starcloud wants to do that. They have to do that next year, and they'll launch about 100 chips from there. So they're basically looking at 200 kilowatts is what they're looking to do there. So that's kind of the rough time frame of 2026, 2027. We'd have those numbers. Um, and then they want to create a 5 gigawatt data center. So, but I don't think they'll build that because it's, miles and miles big. It's really huge. It looks great though. And it's like, this is a lot of solar panels. It's like, in terms of like 2.5 mile by 2.5 miles, that's
Wow.
about like 6 square miles, which would be 640 acres for a mile. So 6 square miles would be about like 3,600 to 4,000 acres worth of solar panels. So it is a huge amount
Huge.
of
Huge.
solar. But if Elon says he'll get 100 gigawatts, it'll be in like a million satellites,
Mhm.
right? He'll have them together, but he'll have more than the power of the data centers on Earth. We're going to about 1 gigawatt in 2026 in multiple locations for multiple competitors. So, but when it cross over and it's cheaper, and
Yeah.
if SpaceX is the dominant one, then it's putting millions of ships up in space. And if all the power becomes cheaper, then they'll just put it up into space. And at some point, there'll also be competition where it could be like 5 years, 10 years later, where they say, okay, I'll bring the price down, or they
Mhm.
negotiate something and then arrange to get it. If there's enough flights up there where it's like, okay, I got all my launches, I will sell in bulk to you a bunch of launches so that you can also launch your AI data centers into space. But if that becomes where it's going to be, then from 2035, 2040 onwards, whatever that date is, then all the millions, billions of new chips go up to space, either orbit, to moon, to Mars. It will be space-based locations that will be where everything is built. We'll have fabs on the moon and Mars, right? So we will go off. This will be the reason, the monetary reason, financial reason for us going off planet. We'll be building, in terms of the gigawatts, that's like 5 nuclear power plants with the power, right?
Yeah.
100 gigawatts, that's 100 gigawatts is all the nuclear power plants in the United States today,
Mhm.
built over decades, right? And the entire power of the United States is 1,500 gigawatts. That's the entire power of the entire United States, right? In power plants. So when you get to those numbers, you're building everything that we have now and more off planet. And then it'll be the chips from Tesla, the AI4, AI5, AI6, AI7, AI8 chips and beyond. That's probably doing it. SpaceX is doing all the moving. SpaceX is helping to probably do stuff with the solar power, and then XAI. So it becomes Elon Musk's solar system that
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
that we're doing. So and then And the reason that it's great, and this is an example of their architecture that they were having there. And the reason that this is so huge is that 100 gigawatts, each gigawatt currently costs about 30 to 50 billion dollars. In 60% chips, 10% chips, then 10 to 20% energy, cooling, and stuff like that. So if you didn't lower the price, your 100 gigawatts would be $3 trillion, right? And you're selling all those chips and doing stuff. It will become chip focused because I can lower the cost of everything else,
Mhm.
increasing power, increasing the efficiency of the flights and all that kind of stuff. So I
Yeah.
can get that tinier and tinier. And then I want to work on focusing on getting the chips cheaper and cheaper, and then building the construction facilities elsewhere. So the way the others could get around the fact that building Earth-based systems is not competitive because I'm losing too much on the launch cost. They can say I will build something on the moon. I will pay more expensive to move it, and then because I need to launch from the moon anyway, I need to lower the cost by building the moon. So others can say I will eat some losses and pay some more to build the development of the moon. So the race would be then the true moon race would be development of the moon, development of Mars to industrialize it, to do the mining and do everything else. Just like we can mine over here on Earth and do mining all over the place. It'd be mining on all the planets and getting all the energy from it. So that's the race that could start happening in 2040. And the picks and shovels and moving equipment and the bots perhaps would be primarily SpaceX,
Elon,
Tesla, XAI, et cetera. Yes.
and Boring Company.
And Boring Company, right? So then, and that would be huge. It would be like when you go beyond a terawatt, you're saying more power, or 2 terawatts, you're more power than the United States, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, four
yeah.
terawatts more power than China. It's
Right,
like,
right.
when you get to those 4,000 gigawatts, it's like, and Elon talked about launching 100 terawatts from the moon. Basically, you need to have the fabs on the moon. You have the energy, 100 terawatts per year from the moon all over the solar system. That's 5 times more power than the entire world, right? So and then our share price, like, oh, now we
Right.
have air distance in space. I did the bots. We went to $100 trillion, and now we're pumping out, $100 trillion worth of sales worth of AI data center every year, right? You have to put a PE multiple on that. So then we went up another 100 times. So it basically means it goes unlimited. It's like for generation after generation. It's like, yeah, I was the one who invested in Tesla before they made their first trillionth chip, and
Yeah.
before they made the trillionth Tesla bot, back when we only had one planet, and then we had, now all over the asteroid belt and everywhere. It's like, yeah, that early legacy thing that the people would have. It's like,
Right.
oh yeah, we're at Kardashev 1.2. We're at 1,000 times one planet. So it's like it's your stock value would be like you'd be very happy.
So then I have to ask you the question again, Brian, and this is where I think this is where we end today.
Yeah,
Is is okay, we're going to have compute in the cars, distributed inference. We're going to have compute in the robots, distributed inference. Probably going to be in tractors and forklifts, trucks. We're going to have all this inference that's going to be in the cars, and it's going to be great because it doesn't require cooling. It doesn't require extra. I mean, the electricity comes from the car. The cooling is because it's only one chip. It doesn't require this cooling apparatus. Then we've got the ones that are on the ground that we're going to be building between now and say 2030. And then we've got energy coming from nuclear, which is going to be starting to build up.
yeah,
And now the fusion guys are saying that by 2034, they're going to be ready to go on fusion. So we're going to have energy from fusion, energy from nukes, energy from solar, energy from going into solar into space. We're going to have distributed energy, which won't require the energy. So, I mean, distributed rather inference, so we won't require the energy there. I mean, come on, isn't there at some point that this will go, wait a minute, we don't need all this in order to get the job done?
It's basically is there ever a limit to how much intelligence and stuff that you need? Because energy is work and doing stuff. So basically, back 200 years ago, I'm saying, okay, does anyone really need uh, um, 10 million cows? Or do we need all that? Or do we need all these trains? Like back, I think famously in the 1950s or for like that, they were saying we only need 7 computers in the world. That's all we need.
Yeah, right, right,
Because we're doing that, that would handle all of our computing needs. We'd
right.
be able to do the census fine and do other stuff, and then we don't need anything more than
Yeah,
that. And then we end up needing a billion times more. So to say that, okay, once we have that, it's enough, it's like saying, you know, we should have stopped our economy, you know, like 20 years ago. That would have
yeah.
been enough. Like everyone having, $30,000. Like why do we need $70,000? Why do we need $100,000? It's like, you know, once you're there, you say, of course I want more, and of course I need more intelligence. Yeah.
All right. So then my latest kind of thinking into the future about this was my attention span or my eyeballs is what you pay is what people pay for. They pay for the eyeballs. Okay. They pay for my eyeballs basically because they want to sell me something. They want to sell me some advertising, or they want to charge me a subscription every month to come and watch entertainment, whether that's on the screen, whether that's in a helmet, whether it's in my glasses, whether it's on my contact lens, or whether I'm going to go visit and actually, participate or be on location. So I've got only 16 hours a day that you could grab my attention, that you could buy my attention.
Hmm.
Now there's probably, another 5 billion people out there who have some extra attention that can be grabbed.
Right.
So, but it would seem to me that there's going to be a finite amount of the need for entertainment to those 5 billion people. Now there can be competition, and now we've got this new kind of entertainment, and now you got to watch this, but that's just going to mean somebody else goes away.
Yeah.
So I want you to be thinking about this. Obviously, I want you to answer now, but I want you to be thinking about what do we do when every human on Earth is being entertained 16 hours a day,
Yeah.
assuming they don't have to even work anymore.
Yeah.
What
So,
is
so
the
there's
next, what
a
is the
few parts.
next need? Yeah.
Right, right. So there's a few parts to that question, right? So one is that the purpose of civilization and the
Yeah.
purpose for the individual, and then the economy of the individual. So the percentage of the economy that will be human driven will start shrinking, right?
Mhm.
Because you'll have all these other intelligences, whether they have their own agency or not, is a separate thing.
Right.
We
Right.
could say, okay, you need to follow our directions and do stuff for us,
Right.
right? So the human portion will shrink, just like the portion of the economy that was horse driven
Mhm.
or cow driven shrank as we got automation where we're doing other things that replace the horse, right? So our level of effort will get reduced, and then you have a larger economy that's doing more stuff. But it will be energy, intelligence, and data based, right? So you'll have all this energy, intelligence, and data, and going to the point of like, if we get to, you know, 10 times the power of the Earth, and we have, compute, with, 1,000 terawatts of compute, something like that, and saying, well, why do we go on to these higher levels? Why do we use everything around the sun and go to 100 billion times more? Why are we doing that, right? And it's because if we collectively say we want to send um, partially robotic, partially human fleets out to the
Mhm.
other star systems, people have always said, well, that's so expensive. That involves, we have to put all the energy the Earth involves to it. If I have 1,000 times the energy of the Earth, I can say my space program is now 0.1% of that. I'm still sending this fleet off. I can convert massive asteroids that are this, nearly the size of our moon, break them down into
Right.
ships, and then
Right.
send them out there, right? And it's like if I'm doing things at the beyond Star Trek, Star Wars scale of things,
Yeah.
of like, that's no moon or whatever, I'm making this giant thing, is I need to have the energy to do that. And it can't just be based on, well, I couldn't sell enough televisions or movie tickets to do it. It's like, well, what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
going to do this purpose of
Of new thing.
exploration, right? And
Yeah.
getting more new data.
Yeah. Yeah.
exploration, right?
Yeah. And actually, I've said it before, as exciting and fun as space is,
Yeah,
to imagine, going out to these other solar systems and whatnot, or, to even all of our solar system, much less other ones. We also have this vast ocean thing that hasn't been explored.
right.
And so there's all kinds of opportunity to explore the ocean, and that's very expensive and would require a whole new set of technologies in order to do it well. So yeah, I guess so. So yeah, so if we get to the place where we are um, uh, so satisfied, we get to the Wall-E stage where we barely have to work and our needs are all met. We don't really want anything more in terms of entertainment or whatever. We got all of that taken care of. Then it would be the idea that man still would be the adventurer, would want to explore the oceans, explore the rest of the universe, et cetera. And that's where the money would go.
I think it would be on scientific discovery, trying to get to new things, and also getting the data that we need to do it. So everyone will become an explorer, a scientist to get more data. To your point about not having explored our own oceans, there are also about 20 ocean planets in our solar system. So Europa, Ceres, Titan, there's a bunch of ones with ice-covered surfaces. They have to go through, 10 or 100 miles of ice. Even Pluto has an ice cover, and then there's liquid water underneath. So the so that kind of exploration is like, let's look there. Maybe there's alien life there and stuff like that. So there's the purpose would be, let's go check these things out.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
You can go
yeah,
do it instead of like, and then I think general entertainment have less of it, more intense, and then the broad thing would be um,
adventure.
adventure and doing that. And that you have your own personal army of bots that you're leading, you're directing
Right.
things, right? It's like, I'm choosing to do this. I think this is good and worthwhile, and we should do that exploration thing. I think that it becomes somewhat like that Star Trek thing of like boldly going to do stuff, and they
Right.
don't have any part of the economy. There is a level of like, how much am I doing on these engines that are 1,000 times a nuclear power plant? But it's
Right.
like you're directing powerful energies to do things. So the economic stuff will have to change. So we're motivated to do things that we all think, well, that was worthwhile. You discovered a new thing. That's wonderful. That's worth it. Because then it would magnify the whole economy. If I come up with new physics or something like that, that would be, I think, still one of the ultimate things of high value, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. All right. Okay. Well, that's good. That answered my question, and I don't feel nearly as weird having
yeah,
thought about what happens if we are entertained or if we become Wall-E, because I
yeah,
think for most of the world, the visibility, anybody that's watched the movie, Wall-E never gets out of your head.
right, right.
All right, Brian, is this your show or my show? I forget. So
We're both doing a show. We're doing it
Oh,
together.
okay. Can I say my line?
Okay, sure, go ahead.
It's been great talking to you.
Bye.